Have you ever had a dream in which you forgot your own name? You may have noticed that I haven't been uploading much for the past month or so. It's because I've been struggling with this script. This is the hardest video I've ever had to write, but I have to make it because it explains what happens next to this channel, at the same time as it's quite painful and personal and embarrassing. Okay, here goes. In August of 2018, I tried to commit suicide. I'd been practicing for a while, trying to hang myself, trying to figure out when I could do it, where I wouldn't be found in time. But my decision to actually do it ended up being impulsive, not planned. And that probably saved my life, because my husband was already looking for me when I started. And a wire garrote in the middle of a farmer's field is not the most efficient method. It took me a while to figure out how to arrange it so my own body weight would keep the pressure on after I passed out. I finally completed my excessively elaborate preparations and lay down. I remember the sky was golden, there were birds circling overhead, and as my ears and brain began to buzz, I thought, "Give me something, give me a sign, tell me something, please." How did I get to that point? Or more importantly, how did I get past it? Did I get past it? Is this my note recorded, uploaded, and scheduled till after the deed is done? Well, how did I get to that point? On the whole, 2018 was not a great year for me. I received two massive blows to my sense of who I was and who I wanted to be. The first I walked into willingly and possibly counts as one of the most pointless and stupid things I've ever done. Everybody told me not to do it, but of course Superwoman Alison knew better. I allowed myself to be goaded into a fight that didn't need to happen, solved nothing, and ultimately amounted to nothing, except sending me into a spiral of anxiety. The second I also walked into willingly, but at least had the benefit of being worth doing. In 2015, I was kicked out of a comics convention along with my fellow members of HoneyBadgerRadio, and the booth we had painstakingly put up to promote my comic and our work. We were kicked out for reasons that seemingly changed hour to hour, but on the witness stand, the expo confessed. It was because they considered me a danger to the public, because I had a Gamergate flag up at my booth, and I responded to a question posed by feminist panelists after having asked for permission to speak. So I sued the Calgary Expo and the Mary Sue for writing lies about me that covered the Expo's ass. And on August 1st, 2018, a judge ruled for the defendant, essentially saying that corporations can do whatever they want to Canadians, and so can media outlets. The Canadian Revenue Agency sends me a sternly worded letter every year explaining the precise dollar amount of how useful I still am to Canada, how much taxes I owe for the privilege of being a Canadian citizen. Canada decided to divorce its obligations to me, and I still have to send them a support check every month. So why did this matter to me so much? Well, aside from the country of my birth telling me that while I'm useful to them and generating tax revenue, I don't matter to them when it comes to upholding my rights. Aside from that, I wanted to fight back against the pervasive silencing of men's issues. I believe the entire Gamergate scandal was part of that. Games are a mostly male pastime, so the disrespect showed by the games media, the media that exists to serve gamers, is a men's issue. They wouldn't dare show such contempt to a majority female consumer group. I wanted to fight back against the silencing of men's issues. I wanted to win, to show the Mary Sue and the Calgary Expo that they don't have the right to break contracts and lie just because I'm a men's rights advocate. I wanted to be a hero. Recently, I received a letter from a man who misses his son. He's been alienated from his child for 11 years. He lives on the very edge of emotional implosion. I get a lot of these letters. For me, it's not good enough just to point out that things are bad anymore. It's not enough to simply talk about the issues anymore. I can't keep pointing out the idiocy. I can keep pointing out the idiocy of female victimhood ideologues, the fact they have no scientific support for their claims and significant evidence against. I can yell and scream at their popular adherents parroting empty nonsense and unscientific voodoo while doing crazy dances in public. But we all know this. We've all pointed it out over and over. Larger channels than mine exist just to mock and point this out. But the simple fact is, if pointing out the insanity of the moral authoritarians did anything, it would have done it by now. So what use do I really have? I can't give that man his son back. I can't give him a just world. I failed to get that for myself. And I think that's the worst of it. If I can't get justice for myself, how do I get it for anyone else? If, as a woman, I become persona non grata for advocating for men's issues in public, how the hell will men ever see justice? At the time I received the judgment, I realized I was not useful to the men's rights movement. And at the same time I realized I was not useful to the men's rights movement, the Canadian Civil Court showed me that I did not matter to Canada. When you're in that headspace, it's like falling on ice and trying to get up, but you can't find any traction, so you just keep slipping and falling and slipping and falling until you just give up. You can't realize something is wrong when you think the something that's wrong is you. And that's how I ended up in a farmer's field, with a wire garrote around my throat. No, the story didn't end there. What happens was this. My husband Jonathan found me, took off the garrote and held me. Then he said, "You have nothing to prove." For months I remember what he said gave me an immediate feeling of relief, but I forgot what he had said exactly. But that was it. You have nothing to prove. This is a letter from Andrew. I decided to feed the badgers in response to one of Alison's videos asking people not just to watch the videos, but to stand up and be counted. I put my money into the big pot to be used how you see fit rather than individual fundraisers. When I see Feed the Badgers on my bank statement, it reminds me that men's lives matter. My life matters. It's not a message common in our society. When a man like Andrew says that I show him he matters, I know this is the right path. Because being told you matter is enough to save a life. It saved mine. When my husband said, "You have nothing to prove," in that moment, it didn't matter that I didn't matter to Canada. I mattered to him. And when Andrew says that what I do matters enough to him, that he invests in me continuing to do it, I know I will never stop. I will never stop talking about the trials men face. I will never stop telling men that they matter. I chose to carry a weight and a responsibility. I made this choice. Me. I chose the most difficult moral path in society. No one ever starts a men's rights activist. I started out a feminist, and strangely enough, being a men's rights activist was a path initially inspired by my feminism. At least feminism's stated aim of equality. And that stated aim gripped me. Victimhood did not appeal to me. You have to actually value yourself as a woman to care about your victimhood as a woman. And why I don't is a long, sad story not worth the effort to tell. So when I was a teenager, I decided to hold myself to the same standard I felt men were held to by society. I would ask, what would be expected of a man? And then I would try to do it, because that was equality in my eyes. And what I came to realize is that men, more than anything, are expected to be useful. Am I useful as a woman? I mean truly useful. That means if I don't do something, then it doesn't get done. Which further means I have responsibility as a woman to do it, and no one but myself to blame if I fail. Is there anything out there that applies to? That question has driven me for years. If I'm ever self-conscious or insecure or defensive, it's because I'm grappling with that question. Have I done anything of worth at all? Can I do anything of worth? Only men's rights activists, in my experience, recognize that women have a genuine use. And what I mean by that is this. You have a use as a woman that's exclusive to being a woman. You can do it because men can't. That's what men's rights activists, at least some, have told me over the years. Women have social power that men do not. They direct the moral narrative of society in a way that men do not. They lay the foundation of men's identities in a way that isn't true in the reverse. This is an ability, a use that women have. And men's rights activists recognize that women must use it for the benefit of all, not just themselves. We must use it in the service of men as well, because if we don't, the job just doesn't get done, or it doesn't get done right, and we have only ourselves to blame. A hero is a servant to something larger than themselves, or at least something other than yourself. Men's rights is the only place where women are granted the role of hero by being expected to use their unique social gift in the service of men. And that was the weight that I chose to carry. But on that day in the field, the weight I chose to carry was kicking my ass. I've been expecting you all to carry something that I haven't properly shouldered myself. I failed you all who've lost hope, who've buckled under this weight, who said, HoneyBadgerRadio is too negative. Say something positive. Tell me something I can do. How can I talk about these issues without the strength to carry them? How can I lead people to the same despair that nearly killed me? Men's rights will ask more from you than you can imagine. It will ask you to face down academic lies, and the media will not just lie about the issues, the media will lie about you. You'll receive mind-bogglingly insane legal rulings because to your government you aren't human, because you advocate for the human rights of men. I'm not the first men's rights advocate this has happened to, by the way. You could lose your job, your friends, your family, and your significant other. But the truth is, you can lose all of that anyway, and for a far more meaningless reason than advocating for the human rights of men. The despair exists whether or not I talk about these issues. The despair lies in wait for men and women alike, a silent, patient, and implacable predator. You don't advocate for men's issues because it's easy. You do it because it's worth doing. And ultimately, it wasn't men's rights that was kicking my ass. All men's rights did was give me no excuse for being weak. No, what was kicking my ass was me. Walking home, I decided I would become strong enough to carry the weight I chose to carry, whatever that took. Is this me speaking from beyond the grave? Well, no, but someone or something did die in that field. I spent my whole life trying to avoid misery when maybe, just maybe, I needed to build myself into someone who could endure it, and through enduring, overcome. There's sort of a silver lining to being suicidal. You let go of your connection to things. You're ready to let go. And when I let that part of myself go, the part that somehow expects my misery to be someone else's responsibility, I realize something profound. We are, all of us, creating the problem we're calling out. We are creating it through our social habits, our expectations of ourselves, who we've decided we want to be. We all like pointing our fingers at the insanity of the left. But the truth is, we're pointing those fingers back at ourselves. And to solve this issue, we can't keep pointing out the insanity over and over again. We have to put our own houses in order. I have to put my own house in order. I'm not a father figure or a guru or a life coach. I'm just someone who chose to take on a challenge that turned out to be way bigger than she was. But instead of backing down, I'm stepping up. And whatever boulder you decide you want to roll uphill, overcoming depression, opposing inertia in your community, getting a six-pack, advocating for men's issues, whatever challenge you nail your heart to, I hope learning about the tools I used to step up helps you find that extra ounce of grit to do what you need to do. Have you ever had a dream where you forgot your own name? I have. As I woke, I rebuilt the layers of my conscious self. I realized that experience itself is an act of creation, and that we are all our own greatest masterpiece. There is no victimhood and no misery, nothing neither good nor bad, but when named makes it so. Life is not a name, a label, an entity. It's a choice, an action, a most dangerous adventure. In this series, I'm going to tell you what I did after I made the choice to become strong enough to live. Epilogue. I've been thinking a lot about Andrew's letter to me. The fact that when he sees his pledge to us, it reminds him that he matters as a man. I also feel relief when I see people supporting us. It got me thinking why that is. Time is the non-renewable resource that money represents. Money is time. So Andrew's pledge is saying, you done good. You've got nothing left to prove, Alison. Your time is worth my time. And that's a really good feeling. It doesn't matter if the pledge is 5 cents, $5, $50, 500. People give whatever they're able to. But it all says the same thing. You done good. You got nothing left to prove, Alison. Your time is my time. Your time is worth my time. And that's nice to hear. No matter how strong we think we are, sometimes it's nice when another person steps in and says, hey, you done good. Let me carry that load for a bit. So thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Jason Q, Remy, Charles, Mr. 03, Quill Cannon, and so many others for your support. And thank you to every other supporter who I haven't listed who takes the time to say, you're worth my time. Thank you.